chose the Twin Towers canon because I actually wrote that about a year or so before the Twin Towers fell. I think it might have been even 99, late 98, 99, a year or two. And the original version didn't have the rest in peace 1972 to '01. Um, but I thought it would be a good way, since I had poems mixed in, since I was still writing poetry then, and my identity was as a poet, to end the book with poetry. So it ends, the lower tower, or rather the south tower ends, outside the knight's tower, disavowed at center. But the end line there, or a new love enter, meaning, I mean, I'm literally looking forward there to. Within the poem itself, it's speaking about something differently. But when I talk about the skyline would go smaller without you, if our love were to pull as the night, what kind of love could it light, or a new love enter? I'm talking about literally. This was the end of a phase of my life. I mean, I wrote poetry for maybe another 8 or 10 months after that, but as I said before, I was getting almost too godlike in writing poetry. It wasn't a challenge, and so writing these memoirs and mixing the prose with the poetry was the challenge. But what do I do after this? So that's when.
Do you? I mean, that's a good part for your legendary, but you were also losing ins too. The ins were becoming less and less interesting to you, correct?
The ends. What do you mean the ends?
The ins to a poem. So you've mentioned to me off camera before how you would be going Bozo the clown needs to be in a great poem rather than these
Yeah.
more higher concepts that you were doing earlier.
Yeah, and well, I mean, also too. Yeah, you just, like I said, I don't want to repeat myself. Now, I think that if I only had the desire to write poetry, I would have found a way to mutate and not repeat myself and whatnot. But and not that this was an easy out, but I had a lot of these stored up things about myself to do these 4 books. I wanted to write stories. I also wanted to, as I said, move from doing the poetic photography to doing filmic, rather to doing prosaic film, to tell narratives. And so if you read the first 3 or 4 prose books that I wrote after these books, you can see, uh, I have maybe, the short stories are maybe only 3, 4 thousand words, and there are some great little moments that have, short stories that have poetic moments and whatnot. But I was just sort of playing and pulling the Play-Doh, the clay, and whatnot, the dough, and uh, still working out how to things. The artifice was a bit more manifest. You could see the skeletons or whatnot. Now, when I'm writing, my books are fully. You don't see the artifice as easily. Not that it's, and it doesn't. I don't mean that in a negative thing. To have the artifice shown, you can play with ideas off of that artifice, as I do in some of the things like Monarchs of New York. But you have to grow, and you have to move on, and that was, in a sense, that the towers ended up falling. So even though this was written before the towers fell. By putting that at the end, we know that those towers fell, and then a new love enters. So it's the destruction and new love. So destruction and creation. That's the last thing to put into people's mind at the end there.